Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Dust 2, our weekly show going on here. I am joined here, of course, with Joe Cardali, myself, Exner. We got Voltage, Cam, and Flashstep here as well, talking a little bit on both the kind of Tier 2 North American MDL scene as well as their own personal experience with their collegiate scene. So, how's your Halloween going so far, guys?
Very Halloweeny.
Yeah, I'd say very spooky, man. Like, I swear my house is haunted. Not even
Yeah.
kidding. Doors locked
Honestly,
themselves. We came
sounds about
back
right.
and the back door was open. A light was on that we didn't turn off or on. It was freaky. But, yeah.
Yeah, mine's been pretty scary. Woke up at 3 p.m. You know, the usual.
Oh, classic.
The gamer hours.
Yep,
Yeah.
gamer hours.
I woke up at 1:20 today.
I was
Beat
at
me.
1 p.m. as well. Not bad.
Exner, it's weird. You said that we have Cam here as a guest, but I only see Hydrex. So
Yeah, that was. Did he tell you about that?
Hydrex forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I mean,
Did I? Oh,
go
did
either
I
way.
tell him that you didn't know who Hydrex was?
Yeah.
Very. Stab me in the heart a little bit.
That's funny.
I was like,
Unfortunate.
I said to at the same time, I was like, I'm gonna try and get Cam on here as well because I feel like both of y'all would have some good perspective on the college scene, and then I just get the Cam equals Hydrex, and I was like, oh man, I should probably look that one up. Yeah, but starting things off here, I kind of want to finish up talking about this the regular season of Mountain Dew League. I don't know how closely you all have been following it, but we do have our 8 playoff teams. Whalers, of course, being the number 1 seed. Team 1, number 2, Secret Club right after, Mythic, Rebirth, RBG, Depth, and Russian Canadians all trailing behind. But they've all made playoffs, and it's going to be really interesting to see because I don't know what the future looks like for Russian Canadians. I don't know what the future looks like for a lot of these MDL teams, but
That's every single season of MDL. I feel
Yeah.
like.
yeah, especially towards the end when like matches don't matter. Like we saw like a couple 4v5s towards the end, and then on top of that, like a couple like forfeits. So I don't know
Wow.
what's exactly going on in that and what the plans are for these teams. But I mean, if like Russian Canadians aren't planning on playing out the season, then I guess Whalers are getting a bye. But it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, the forfeits to end the season are a little bit distressing, especially the fact that Rugrats
Yeah.
forfeit their last match and a win would have put them into the playoffs.
Right.
To my knowledge, none of the members of that team have kind of commented on that yet thus far.
And that was the same day that they 16-3 the Whalers on Nuke. Like literally, they had a
Really?
match at 8:30, or it was at like 7:15, and I believe their second match of the night was at 9:45. They finish up 16-3 the Whalers, which I was like I knew that team with like the 5-man they picked up Fang, Cobra, and Infinite, and like those are 3 insane players. Fang was like the best player on his team and X Recon 5 for a little while. So like the fact that they just destroyed the number 1 seed and went undefeated the whole season.
And then forfeit the last match, right? That's insane.
To make playoffs, yeah.
Huh, I mean, sounds
Shows you the
about
state
right.
of- shows you the state of MDL at the moment. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
if you look at it, it's quite obviously like probably the least competitive season of MDL I've ever seen.
Oh
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's no like shots towards them.
Right.
It's just the fact that because normally, we had like Chaos, Triumph, and Whalers kind of hung in there a little bit. They were always gave people a run for their money, but I mean, there was mainly just like 3 or 4 teams that were always gonna be in the finals. Like there's basically no other way any other team was. But now that Triumph and Chaos are both in Pro League, it's kind of just like whoever can practice the most gets it.
Right.
Yeah.
That's really all it is.
It's like that a lot in MDL seasons, I feel like, but it's so severe this time from what I've seen. And like, busy with all the collegiate stuff, but obviously watch whenever I can. But at the same time, MDL is always like, I mean, also Valorant also crushed it, right? Like that's
Mhm.
a problem for
Completely
MDL right
killed
now.
it.
Yeah.
All the good competitive team. Well, I mean, I had like a rant at one point on Twitter about how like the Counter-Strike scene requires and should have already had extra resources being given to the scene somewhere. I know there's been little pieces here and there, but you can't expect players to play for 10,000 hours of their time, which is equivalent to 3.5 years of their life, and not get something back. You know what I mean? For that long. And then
Yeah.
to see Valorant on the other side of the ocean or the other side of the pond, like getting all these resources before it even has its first tournament. Like, come on, Counter-Strike. So I mean, there's reasons as to why it has not been competitive this season, but I mean, I'll always support it. You know, I'm Counter-Strike diehard, so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely the Riot effect, right? Like,
Oh, yeah, for
obviously,
sure.
Riot are going to put everything they have behind Valorant, and everyone knows that. And you know, a lot of people have expressed a lot of ire towards people kind of fleeing tier 2, tier 3 Counter-Strike to go over to Valorant. But I think it's completely understandable and reasonable, especially in the US, right? You know, for the last, you know, 5 years, probably even more, the NA CS scene has really not been great. It's been pretty stagnant. There's certainly not the amount of lower tier events that we see in Europe. It just like isn't economically feasible for the situation that we have.
Oh yeah, I mean
so it's
everybody here
unfortunate.
probably could talk about how many crappy contracts they've had to like dance around before as well. So it's not like orgs are doing a great job at helping out everywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know
Hashtag
if you
bed sheets
guys.
for Bibby.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys watched last week, but we had Diego from Whalers on, and he actually made a really good point that I hadn't thought about. But over in Europe, they have organizations over there have access to like much easier capital because the drinking age is lower, gambling is legal on a much wider scale, and obviously that's an uphill battle here in the U.S. On both of those fronts.
Yeah, that's why they have all those like small tournaments that with like pretty decently sized prize pools that they just host like all the time. Remember all those
Yeah,
like
like
back
the loot
before
bet?
COVID? Yep, they had
Yeah.
all those, like a lot of them all the time. It was a lot of money, and there were a lot of good teams that would get great practice. Like that's the thing that makes the European scene so much better is that their tier 2, tier 3 levels are so much better, and there's so many more teams that it makes it really like if you're a tier 1 team, you could practice against any of them and still get good practice no matter what. Whereas like in NA, at least when I was playing that long ago, like
a decade ago.
like it was really like a crapshoot if you played a lesser team, if it was good practice or not. Like sometimes they would try and they would do these things where it's like, wow, okay, I can see their idea there, and like they're trying, and like it was kind of difficult to play against. And sometimes they literally were just gonna hold W and just play like morons and be a waste of an hour of your life. And
Yep, very much so.
and you don't have that in Europe because if you are a team, because it's so competitive and there's so many teams, if you're known as that team that doesn't take practice seriously, you're going to fall out of relevancy real quick. But in NA, there's like no options. So you have to play against these times. Otherwise, you just don't fill that hour.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen recently like FPL or Faceit and ESEA, right, take a stab at kind of the smaller cups thing with their weekend cash cups. But even with a bunch of those flying around, you still don't see all the MDL teams participating, which is a little bit again disheartening, because you see people leaving the game to for opportunities in other games, which again, fair play. But there is still quite a fair bit of cash to be made, in North America, especially for these, top tier teams, the Chaoses, the Triumphs, so on and so forth.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, they're grinding it out too, right? Like, as long as you're grinding out, you're gonna be winning those left and right. So.
Well, I also think the biggest issue is going back to the Valorant thing. Like half of these players are playing Valorant on the side that are in MDL, and they're prioritizing it more because it makes sense as it being a Riot game. Everybody understands that eventually it's going to be completely franchised, like League.
Yeah.
Like, of course. So they want to get into it early, and that's also why orgs want to get into it early as well, because if they have a good enough team, they can hope that the first time they want to buy a spot into a league is going to be cheaper than 10 years down the line.
Right.
Yep.
It's low hanging fruit. It's always gonna be low hanging fruit.
Yep.
I think the Counter-Strike scene in general, I mean, we're gonna see, in my opinion, a transition across a lot of like the tax shooters. I mean, rumor on the street is in 2 to 3 years from now, Call of Duty is gonna go PC, right? So like when will Counter-Strike hop into that? Because Counter-Strike will literally just destroy every single Call of Duty player that steps up to the PC scene, right? So it's like all these smaller or bigger games going to PC. Like Counter-Strike's #1 tack shooter for a reason. The skill ceiling's so high. So as long as you transition that into the right like meta and the right practice, you're gonna have Counter-Strike players going to all these games in the next couple of years because, I mean, I'll say it, we're the best tack shooter there is. I mean, flat
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
and dominating, right? Like, I've seen a lot of people saying that they think that kind of this, like, you know, the CS wave in Valorant is gonna peter out, but I just flat out don't see it happening.
No, it'll never go away.
Unless they
Yeah.
find a way to make the gun mechanics in Valorant even worse than they already are, then maybe the CS guys will start having some
Yeah,
issues.
that's the thing for me, dude. Is I tried playing Valorant and I just couldn't. I just didn't like it. I
Well,
just
you-
didn't think it was fun. Like
You're
I can
punished for counter
understand.
strafing. Like,
Yeah, yeah, it just wasn't fun. I didn't
Yeah.
like it. Like the gunplay, it felt kind of nice. Like it was smooth, and like the way people peeked you and stuff, that was kind of nice. But like everything else, like there's just so much bullshit in that game where you can like see people through walls and kill people without seeing them. It was just obnoxious to play, man. And like
Compared to other FPSs, though, I
it
feel
was
like it's all
infuriating.
right. Like Valorant's up there, right? Like when you're looking, I mean, I have strong opinions about Overwatch. I think Blizzard are jerks of what they've done and like don't listen to the community and give it really bad updates. But at the same time, you can literally be a mile off the mark on Overwatch and still hit somebody. So it's like, where's the skill ceiling here? I mean, obviously it's going to be competitive as it is the teams that are playing within that pool of the pro scene, right? But I mean, like you put an Overwatch player versus Counter-Strike player when it comes to pure aim. I mean, I'm pretty sure Counter-Strike player wins a lot of the time. So it's just like stuff like that where Valorant actually has the mechanics of certain things that like make sense, but then they add their stuff too to make it different, which is where like obviously you have a debate on is it really a good mechanic? But you know, same time, if there's money in it, Counter-Strike's gonna come eat it up basically. I think at this point.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think the confusing thing to me is everyone, like the way we try and compare aim is like, I swear, in all these other games except for CS, really, like at the highest level, you have all these people posting these aim lab clips, like all this stuff, especially with Overwatch players, and it's like, congratulations, like you got 100 and something thousand points. Like, okay, now why'd you just go like 0-27 in this match consistently? Like,
Mhm.
I don't know. I feel like everyone tries to focus too much on aim in all these other games because they think that's all it is, but it's like, that's
It's
just
so
not,
much
you can't do
more.
that in
Yeah.
CS.
It-
Like
it's
if I
That's
just
the
grind aim
easiest
lab all day,
part.
it's not gonna do anything.
I would tell everybody that's the easiest part, right? Like the mechanics will come, the aim will be there. If you play 10,000 hours of Counter-Strike, your aim will be close to where it should be. It's all the other factors that you can't practice by yourself is where the pro players are. You know what I mean? Like that's what makes the difference. That's what makes you a great player versus just like an aimer. I mean, we talk like what's the word? Like young guns, right? Like we have that saying in Counter-Strike because you have a mechanical wizard who comes in and can like follow someone with experience or follow on a team and they can get the shot you need, but at the same time, without them showing them like the ropes on like what utility toss, what to say, like they would just be like a fish out of water, right? So it's everyone talks about, you're right, the aim, like at the end of the day, it's so much more than that. It's like the last thing in my mind when I'm looking at if a player's great versus good.
Yeah.
Yep,
My-
that's what I was telling my team. All right, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say like if you think like I know we're kind of sticking on this Valorant train, but do you guys think that like these Valorant pros like that have switched over, like for example Hayes to, I've heard a lot from his recent time in the Nerd Street Gamers tournament, that First Strike tournament. Like he was one of the most talked about players on Twitter. Like a bunch of the people, a bunch of the other commentators were like, Hayes is popping off. Now, do you think like, because Hayes isn't like the most mechanical player in CS, he was like a support rifler who didn't do much. Do you think that eventually like that CS knowledge that Hayes can bring to like new players that are switching over to Valorant is gonna kind of he's gonna kind of dig his own grave in a sense? Because he's
No.
gonna be able to teach like all of these young players with insane mechanics in Valorant his CS knowledge, and then you know they'll have the mechanics to keep up.
You know, I think the hardest thing about talking about players that might not be mechanically good is tough because there's so many dynamics on a team that some people have to fill in roles or do certain things to where there are a lot of players I think that don't frag out per se because they have to do other things for that squad. And
Yeah.
if they don't, they're going to suffer greatly. So they are just really good at certain things that other players aren't, right? Like and to be honest, if like Hayes swaps on over and he just wants to frag out and has the ability to do that because the players around him on his team are like enabling him to do that, he could probably pop off and smoke 18, 19-year-old wizards, in my opinion. Right? Like
I
he
think
just has to
that's what he's
focus
been
back
doing
on
so
that.
far. Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, man, it's like we talk about the experience and everything, but at the same time, Like these players that have been playing for 10 plus years, 5 plus, 6 plus years, if they really focus on just beating someone in a 1v1, they'll freaking beat them, in my opinion. Like a majority of the time, right? Like, obviously, you're never going to have like a perfect. You get 10 kills against one person. They're going to get you every once in a while, right?
Yeah.
So that's
I
my
mean,
opinion on it.
we've seen in NA, like, for a long while, there's just a complete dearth of in-game leaders, right? And in
Yeah.
CS, and there's no reason to, like, say that the Valorant scene is going to be any different. So, I mean, I think it's the perfect move for, someone who's kind of past their prime or over the hill in CS to kind of move over to Valorant and take, there's certainly a lot of transferable knowledge over there. So, I mean, I think it's a perfect game for a hazed, dazed, or all the other
Yeah.
sorts of
Yeah,
folks.
and I also think that as much as Valorant is like mechanics heavy when you're in just a 1v1 duel, like with how many abilities there are, like
Yeah.
I've actually been playing it like a lot, and you can literally win an entire round by not shooting your gun once.
Yeah.
So when it comes to like the fall off of somebody that like as long as he's consistently making sure he's innovating with lineups and just all this stuff and understanding his character's utility, like I really don't see a point where, like, obviously, if somebody's just straight up whiffing 30 bullets every single time they peek, like, that's a
Yeah.
different story. But for the most part, that's probably just not going to happen. And I think one thing that people really underestimate about a lot of these players is these older players, they get the kills they should. Like, they might not get
Yep.
those 2 extra, like, insane spray transfer kills,
Impact
but
frags, yeah.
yeah, but they get the kills that they should. Like every time we'd play with MCE, whenever he would sub in after he hadn't played in like 2 months, he would 100% every single time. I don't think I saw him whiff a kill that he should have gotten like on the first guy. Like yeah, he may have not hit the second spray transfer or whatever, but he always got the kill on the first guy. If he was ever in a 1v1 and it was given a free kill, he always got the kill because these guys they know how to get that one kill. But they don't have that crazy snappy mechanics
Yeah.
sometimes to like get the triple headshot spray transfer,
Shout out to MCE. Love you, Matt. All right, let's get off the Valorant topic for now. Although I'm sure we'll come back to it at some point.
Yeah, my next topic that I kind of wanted to address, although we kind of mentioned it earlier, is that we're kind of seeing a collapse in the MDL scene. We just saw the exit of both, I believe it was Armin and Rise, as the 2 players from
Hendy.
right?
Yeah.
2 players from Virio Pro who have had plenty of experience in MDL. My question is, what do you all think the new move ups and like new talent are gonna be? Like, are we gonna kind of be filling MDL spots with like your YAG Gamings, and I think Pain Gaming is gonna have an opportunity in relegation this season, depending on if they get an invite or not. But do you think that those fills are gonna be good for the scene in North America?
Yeah. Every experience I've ever had playing against like South American teams coming to play in MDL, they always try really, really hard and they put in the work, and it makes the whole scene better the more teams you have that are like that. Like a good example is like the new Team 1. Like they have these new players that, to be honest, are really, really good. Like I remember playing against them and being like really surprised, like these guys I've never heard of before, and they're just insane. Like Pesadello and what was the other guy, Pure T? They're so good. They're so good.
Yeah.
And I'd never heard of them before. They try really hard. Like practicing against Team 1 when they had those guys was like actually pretty good practice.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the most like overlooked thing about these teams coming in is you don't realize like especially with a YAG Gaming like when they bring them over to North America, they're escaping, a country that, is not definitely not, beneficial to the growth of, a Counter-Strike, like for somebody to have the opportunities to as much as they do in North America. And with these situations, like this is literally their livelihood. Like if they come over, they will grind 12 hours a day because they know that if they don't make this work, they have to go back and the dream's kind of over. So they have everything to fight for, to whereas if you're just, another kid in MDL, all you do is aim labs all day and you just don't really care.
Aim labs
So
and
like
shit talk your teammates.
yeah, exactly. And then field bugs. Yeah, exactly. Like that's really all it is. So,
Then roster swap.
Yep.
Yep.
It's very overlooked, and like people don't realize how much time that they put into the game, and like I think all these teams are extremely underrated. It's a similar situation in my opinion with like Bravado when they came over. You saw Sonic
Mhm.
in JT, like they were just popping off, especially Sonic, notably. Like he was the star player of that team. And then I think once I mean I can't speak too much about it because I don't know their team dynamic, but he definitely fell off a lot on Cloud9. And I think that that chip on his shoulder kind of faded after a while because he just had that sense of security of, oh well, I'm on Cloud9 now. You know, I don't necessarily have as much fight as I did on Bravado. So obviously I can't speak to if that's true or not, but that would just be my assumption.
I'd even say like it kind of happened after Envy. Maybe something happened within that team that kind of like broke it for him. Maybe like his experience with that team was just so bad that it just kind of killed some of like his motivation to keep being like the best, you know?
We could definitely see that.
I
There's
mean,
a theme to it too. I mean, there's a theme overall when you're grinding to pro. I think that everyone's so hungry in any esport at the very beginning. It's really once you get to the top, how hungry you are once you get there, that really defines some of the teams and players. I mean, I remember when I got pro and like my fire was there for so long after, but then eventually it kind of gets to you for whatever reason, right? You can name 1,000 things, but eventually something's gonna like you're gonna fight yourself on, do I want to keep on putting this much time into a game with what I'm getting out the outcome, right? Like that's the
Yep.
ultimate fight you have when you get to pro. So I mean that's different for each player, each team, but it's definitely there. I always think that the first couple years when you're grinding to get into the scene, that's when you're the hungriest, in my opinion.
Well, did anyone see the first part of the Edward interview that went up on HLTV today? You know, literally, he's kind of speaking to that very same thing that
Yeah.
you were, Corey. Like, you know,
Really?
becoming the best team in the world is doable, right? Staying there is the hard
It's
part.
hard. Yep.
And you know, he said, you know, in 2018 we made 3 finals, and we could have been the best team in the world, but we got lazy. Essentially, is what he said, right? And yeah, I mean that's what makes like the recent Astralis era so incredible, right? Is it wasn't just that they were the, you know, undisputed best team in the world. They were undisputed best team in the world for almost a year.
Yeah.
Which is that's what's hard.
Yeah, and I think that's why it's so impressive that Astralis is like probably the best team of all time. Definitely the best team of all time in CS because like I think I don't remember who it was, but somebody mentioned I think it was Launders or something. But if you put in comparison like the different eras, like you had the NIP era, you just had all these different eras where teams were super dominant.
Mhm.
But if you put peak Astralis versus peak of those teams, there's no competition. It's like peak Astralis wins in every single sense
Yeah.
of the way because they
Yeah.
weren't just like outclassing everybody necessarily. It was just they were just so good that no matter what happened, they would win because they just fundamentally played the game perfect.
So consistently too.
Yeah,
That was
and
the
so
thing.
consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Even on their bad days, they played
We're
they
so
did the
great. Yeah.
fundamentals so well that it didn't matter
Yeah.
if one person was having an off day because somebody just picked up the slack.
Yeah, and that's huge too. I mean, you said a word that like piqued my interest, the fundamentals, right? Like I think if you get someone, I mean, I've seen it. I do it in the collegiate scene with certain players. Like I've seen, like I have a player, his name is Jack in the program. He actually lives with Cam. He's from Defiance, and I gave him the fundamentals and what you need to do out the gates. But he hadn't played that much Counter Strike, right?
Mhm.
But he's gotten so much better with just fundamentals, and he's so strong with communication utility versus someone who's been pugging for 2,000 to 3,000 hours. So when you start looking at it like that, it's like if your fundamentals are good, you're going to be a great player. And I think Astralis has all the fundamentals down to like obviously the highest of levels, right? They
Mhm.
could just basically they could attack any tack shooter together if they put in the time with the fundamentals they have. They would just crush.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I can also speak to the collegiate scene because that's like one of the very shocking things for me when I came into it because I think two of the guys on my team have absolutely no league experience. They've never played an ESEA league, Faceit. They've just never played in any tournaments.
Mhm.
And one of them, his name's Dead. He literally has been like almost top fracking like all these games because his mechanics are so good, but he just had no like fundamentals. And as soon as I gave him the fundamentals, like when we first started playing and they had no fundamental knowledge really of the game, we were like on a good day tying a main team, like a pretty decent main team. But now we're like beating advanced teams and like tying them consistently because all they needed was the fundamentals and now they're just absolutely insane. And I didn't realize that like that's how important it is in CS to have those fundamentals and the understanding of the game. Like it doesn't matter how good your mechanics are. If you guys can just work together as a team and make things happen, like
You
it
win.
also kind of shows me how weak the NA scene is that's not like top MDL, but still at the same time it's like extremely impressive to me that a lot of these guys, they have the drive, they have the understanding. It's just someone needs to tell them what to do.
Yeah, and Cam can speak to that too. Like Cam does the exact same thing for our squad. I'll let him talk about that too.
Yeah, I'm more of like a Counter-Strike professor kind of. I'm like I make videos, I teach them everything. Like I don't have the luxury of starting off in such a position that Logan did. My team is a little bit less experienced in pretty much every way at the moment, and so like a lot of the things that I have to teach them are like really like ground zero level things. And it's been like really kind of eye-opening to sort of like how like to teach people, you know, like it's given me like a whole different perspective that I've never had before. Like I connect a lot more with like all of my professors I've ever seen because of like the experiences I've had teaching like the players on the team, like basic things like saying, okay, like you go through this and you go like this and stuff like that, and then there's going to be people that are trying harder and people are trying less, and it's like trying to like get them to like listen and pay attention and do all this stuff. It can be tough. It can be really tough, especially
Yeah.
like the landscape of like my like my generation right now. It's like a lot of these kids in like the classes, like I look around and like a lot of them look like they're just being forced to be there. Like they don't want to be there. They'd literally rather be doing anything else. And I feel like that's really dangerous for like your growth as a human. You know what I mean? Like you need to be taking these classes because you want to learn, not because your parents told you to that you need to. And I feel like I had an awesome opportunity thanks to Corey to really come back to school once I've like regained a new perspective on like, okay, like I've done the pro Counter-Strike thing. I want to do school again. I want to learn. I want to finish my degree off. And I was like in a position where I was not, it wasn't like my dad saying, hey, you have to get this degree, or like, or not gonna support you anymore. And it's like, okay, but now I can come here almost all on my own and do classes and finish my degree off. And thanks to like all that experience I had, I'm much more well equipped to deal with it. And on top of that, like I'm learning like these really valuable skills in like teaching people and leadership and like assertiveness that I've never had before. And it's pretty great.
Yeah, I think that's the coolest thing about some of the collegiate stuff we're doing, or any collegiate program. I think when you give an individual an opportunity to do the IGL and the leadership role, like I still remember when I was IGLing a lot, and like I think there's something to be said about the mindset of an IGL and someone who leads the team versus just call strats, right? Because like anybody can say, let's go 3-2 split somewhere, or let's 4-1 this, or let's all stack this site, right? That's easy. I mean, you watch enough videos, you know what to call. If you play enough, you know what to call. I think the really, really, really great players that are just in the esports scene are the ones who know how to lead a team effectively and work with people a lot of the time. So it's like, and you don't always get that opportunity, right? Because you have to have 4 of the people around you that respect you. Also, you have to be good at what you're doing, like them to follow you. So like a lot of cool things, I think, when you have an opportunity, probably for both the dudes in here that are playing the collegiate scene, like people listen to them, you know, and you can really work off of that to become a better player as well if you use it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sorry,
Yeah,
go ahead.
yeah. I was gonna say my whole career has pretty much like led me to this point. It's actually interesting to think about because for all of my teams that I've ever been on, I was like the mental and emotional leader. Like, even if I wasn't the IGL, like SOAR, Broken Alliance, like all these rosters, I completely was the like mental and emotional leader. Like, I always was the one with a level head. Like, if there was any issues, it was always come to me, and then I will go to somebody else and talk to them about it. And I just have always had to be like the emotional, like I couldn't really get super emotional in games or anything because if I did, there was nobody to calm
That
everybody else
mental
down.
game, I mean, that's a whole nother rabbit hole, right? The
Yeah.
idea of a mental game. We've seen people burn out in this 24/7, and I preach that from day one with anybody that joins my program. Is like, you know what, we're practicing 4 days out of the week rather than 5 because I don't want you to burn out a year or two later. And I've seen it happen in the collegiate scene because not everybody has this like very passionate desire to just play 8 hours a day. Can I play 8 to 12 hours a day of Counter-Strike? Hell yes. Can the other person that's sitting next to me? Maybe not. You know what I mean? So like that burnout has definitely changed for everybody in that mental game, right? Like uh, that's a whole different rabbit hole that is it's insane to me because it's so important in this day and age, I think, within not just esports, but the people that you're around, your team, your whatever you're doing. But it's directly connected to like individuals that are like helping lead that way when it comes to the mental game of everything.
Yeah, I mean, leadership, not just in CS, but in anything in life, right? Even in the quote unquote real world, right? It involves respect, it involves command, it involves nurturing, it involves
Right.
teaching, right? But it's all about knowing when to turn on which persona and how heavily, right? And like I think it's great that you guys have the opportunity to kind of learn about that in a context that you obviously are so familiar with, in Counter-Strike. And I think it'll be hugely beneficial for you guys going forward, whether you spend the rest of your life in esports or become accountants or whatever the hell.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. I mean, I would love to go back to something that you guys were talking about before, and just about like how these collegiate like teams are structured and created. Like it sounds like you guys are both playing with a lot of either at best like matchmaking heroes or people that have like really not put that much time into the game. So like how does it happen? Like how does that happen?
Well, I mean, what do you mean like the structure? Sorry, I'm gonna grab my bird before he starts yelling at us all.
All good.
One sec.
Yeah, he's a cool guy. He has a bird.
That's cool.
We'll cut this out.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got him now. We're good.
Oh, he's on your
no,
shoulder.
Yes, sir. He's my
Nice.
Zoom partner. But I mean, when the structure of it, it really comes down to, I mean, there's two ways to look at the structure, I guess. In my mind, I'm coming from like the director and the head coach of it, right? It's like I
Mhm.
recruit a certain way, but at the same time, I'm also recruiting to make a bigger program. So the
Mhm.
structure of who I'm getting, I mean, obviously, I'm talking to anybody from the MDL scene or the pro scene, whatever it is, right? Like I'm aiming for those individuals because if they want to come back to college or be in college, like I'm all for it. But the reality of the situation is like a lot of people are already pro. If they're playing, they're not looking at college right now, or they're not going to the college that's not close to them, right? So, I mean, because the MDL
Right.
scene and pro scene is so small, it's like finding a needle in the haystack. So
Mhm.
I guess like when it comes to the structure of it, like who we're getting down there, it's kind of like anybody, but obviously I know in the back of my head I want us to be more competitive, and that's the whole reason like with what we're doing with the program. And we'll talk about that later, but
Mhm.
from a director and head coach perspective, it's do you want to play esports? Will you dedicate the time? I don't really care where you're at in the scene because, again, you can teach someone up pretty quickly if they put in the time.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I mean, Cam might have a different look on that too when it comes to the structure of things.
Yeah, I mean, I like the way I've sort of been handling it is I've sort of just been like preparing myself like the way I want to lead, the way I want to call, like figuring that stuff out. But at the same time, like I also have to like teach the game first in like every
Mhm.
aspect. Like I try to preach to people that are on the team like, hey, there's these skills that you need to do to be good at Counter-Strike that are transferable to every other part of your life, like communication, adaptability, level-headedness, like stuff like that will help you so much in your real life, like your life. Like, and I am like a perfect example of that. Like, I feel like I've transformed from like who I was like even like a year ago to who I am now, just through like trying really hard to improve all those skills necessary to become a good Counter-Strike player. And it's like it's kind of crazy. Like I reap the benefits from it too. Like I'm much more outgoing. Like I'm not afraid to ask questions to people. Like it's great. And I try to like really instill that on the people that I'm playing with. Like, hey, like you got to communicate this. You got to keep like an open line. You can't be afraid to ask me questions, even if like maybe I'm kind of like intimidating, which like it can happen. Like I'm here to help you. So like ask me questions. If you're struggling, I'll help you out. Like it's all about just being there for each other.
Mhm.
Feedback and criticism too, I think, is something that's very key. Like really good Counter-Strike players are really good at taking and giving criticism. That is not a given for everybody in the world. Let's just
Yep.
start there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I was adding that tad bit there because I think
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for our program so far, and I've been very fortunate that all my teammates, like, we're all kind of friends. Like, I wouldn't say it's
that's good.
nobody sees it as like a chore by any means to show up to practice. Like, we all really want to. Everybody like will randomly people be like, oh hey, like can we just run a scrim for fun tonight? Like I'm bored. Like let's just run some
Mhm.
scrims, and But I think the beauty of having players like me and Cam come into the collegiate scene is these players come in knowing who you are for the
Mhm.
most part,
Mhm.
and they respect you already. So when you're giving them criticism, it's not really like I push on them like, hey, if I give you criticism and like, yeah, go ahead, take it. You should take it as constructive criticism, but don't feel like you can't like say,
Push
oh,
back.
yeah,
Yeah.
don't just take everything I say as preaching to the choir or something. Like I just don't. You cannot take that as just fact. If you disagree with it, tell me and just we'll talk about it. Like it's no big deal. We're peers. I'm not like, yes, I'm like the IGL. I am the team captain, but at the same time, we are peers. Like you got to have that mutual respect for each other to know that, hey, you can talk to me if you disagree with something. Like I'm not just gonna be this overlord that tells you everything. And I specifically
Mhm.
tell them like whenever I give criticism, I change my tone of voice depending on how urgent the criticism is. So like
Yeah.
I'm going to like if somebody makes a huge fundamental mistake that needs to be fixed like ASAP before it gets out of control, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, can you maybe not do that next time?" Like I'm going to
Yeah.
I'm going to say like, "Hey, don't do that again. That's not good." But
Yeah.
they
Right.
know that when I say that, I'm not like mad at them. I'm giving them that criticism so that way they remember, "Oh, hey, I did this last time and he wasn't happy, so I'm not going to do that again."
Mhm.
Well, you're
Yeah.
always
And
gonna be
it's
right too. You're always like that's the thing I've seen the most. I mean, also when I was having to do a lot more of the coaching aspect and like when Cam's here, it makes it very easy because I can go work with like Valorant for like an hour or two, and I know that Cam's gonna lead him the right way. But there's no argument a lot of time when you have a pro player coming back and playing because they're always right. Like I don't care what that person's saying most of the time because they're usually the better option is what Cam is saying. And
Mhm.
that's okay. That's like established. That's fine. That's a good way. If we can get to a point where the players are just as good, if not better, then we can actually have a discussion about whether that was a good play.
Mhm.
That'd be awesome. But that's usually not the case, right? So they understand that, yeah, okay, I can see what you're saying. This is what I should do next time. And therefore, we're like, we shortcut that. I say that word all the time. We shortcut stuff because
Mhm.
we have that experience here at a program, like likewise over there too.
Yeah, I can definitely say I'm very fortunate that like the players that I have are in a really good spot where they're good enough to like their mechanics are perfectly on par with or I would say on par with most of the teams we play, and but they have like no egos at all.
That's
Yeah.
So
good.
whenever I give criticism or anything, they just take it. Like they
That's
usually don't
huge.
disagree with me because it is that thing where I think even if they do disagree, they're not gonna really say anything because they're like, okay, you probably are right on that.
Yeah.
Yeah. The
That
ego
that
thing's big.
that must be a breath of fresh air coming from the NA CSGO scene, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Very much so.
That's funny. Yeah. Everyone knows
to play
exactly
with
what's right.
molds.
24/7 NA scene.
Yeah.
Is it the case that all players on these teams have some sort of scholarship or like what's the deal
Most.
with that? Okay.
Depends. Like when I recruit, I put everybody on scholarship. I mean, I have an
Mhm.
aggressive scholarship, and I want them to be a part of the esports community and this varsity program because A, they're on scholarship, also B, because they want to play esports, right?
Mhm.
But we do have players that sometimes aren't because I'll backfill from like club or I'll backfill from people on campus that maybe didn't talk to me, right? And like once you're locked into the scholarship, I can't like go back 2 months and talk to you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it's usually scholarship. Um, a lot of the time.
And what are the mechanics of like roster changes in this environment, right? Because your scholarship is tied to playing CS:GO, presumably, right? So if you're not anymore, what is the implication there on someone's scholarship?
That's a great question. You've opened up a can of worms with that one. So
That's what I do.
that's the one thing that I've seen within the collegiate scene too, is everybody loves to say they have like an esports program, but then when you start digging into the esports program, it's really not that much of a program. There's some BS every once in a while, right?
Mhm.
So a good example of this was I won't mention the school's name, but like there was a player who got recruited on a varsity scholarship somewhere, and they got moved to JV, and then he got a JV scholarship and ended up owing the college thousands of dollars extra. So like stuff
Right.
like that, right? Which is just like insane to me. But sorry, what was the question again? I already forgot. I started ranting.
Well, I mean, no, that's like essentially the question, right? Is like what happens in that situation if you're recruiting people to your school to play this game, right? And
Oh, and they don't anymore.
and then
Right.
they're not. Yeah.
It can change. I mean, I have it in like I have a huge handbook along with a player agreement that I have that everyone signs. And like if you go look for a player agreement, there really isn't one in the collegiate scene. And I hold on to mine dearly because we spent probably close to 40 hours forming it. because there is that question like, well, what if I just quit, right? And so it goes in detail about like there might be a certain amount that's not given to you anymore if you were to quit for these type of reasons. Where versus if you quit for these reasons, maybe what you would still get the same amount, right? So it's like a detailed packet of information of like if you were to step away or for whatever reason don't want to play anymore, this is what would happen. And that's huge too because you don't want to just like yank someone's scholarship, right? Like that's crazy.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
presumably that could result in someone not attending or not being able to attend the school anymore, right?
Yep.
In a serious
Right.
enough circumstance.
Yeah. So we connected to merit too. I connect mine to merit strategically because therefore there's other factors that are connected to the scholarship, but also there can be a sway of esports on it as well.
Academic merit, you mean, not like within the
Right.
server? Yeah.
No, well, I mean like in the community, right?
Yeah.
It's a unique scholarship situation, right? It's so unique that where it's a little bit of both actually. To where if I do know someone from the pro scene that I'm talking to, or like from MDL, whatever it is, there might be more of a conversation there to see what I can get you.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would certainly imagine that whatever deal Cameron has is slightly sweeter than the rest of the people on the team. Like, I don't think that would surprise anyone if that was the case.
Probably. Sometimes the programs have stackable scholarships, which everybody gets the exact same. So they all get like usually I've seen is like $1,000 or $2,000 extra, right? Like that is your stackable scholarship. We don't care where you're like from. Well, most of the time, the director, head coach on there doesn't really know much about esports to begin with. But
Right.
that's just the reality of it. It's like someone from IT or someone who really loves video games. It's like, yeah, I can help run esports stuff. And then like you have let's say you have a top 10 Smash player down in your club, they would have no idea, right? Stuff like that. So they
Right.
just give them all $2,000.
Do you think that's the way that it should be? Because like this is a conversation that has recently like started happening, right, with Cloud9 revealing like the salaries of all their players, and obviously they're different. When for a very long time, like it has always been 5 people on the team, they all get paid the same. Like, what's your take on that as from your position?
I think just giving people like $1,000, $2,000 is really like scapegoating and making it easier for the university and individual. I think personally, because I have to be more involved with the like talking about what they're going to be getting, which I mean, I think that's good because it means that I care about what you're getting a lot of the time. So I think the lazy route out is here's just $2,000, give it to everyone, show up for esports, right? And I think you want to get to a point where it kind of like looks like traditional sports a lot of the time, where you have a huge sum of money that's for just athletics or just for esports, and then you can kind of like divvy that up to like who deserves more, right? Like so much more of a traditional type of scholarship in that sense. So I think it's that route because I think the 2K is just lazy.
Yeah, I know our situation is pretty similar, but everybody's scholarship on the team is completely different. We haven't really talked about it too much of like individually who's making what because a lot of people have a stigma around like talking finance and their financial situation, which is understandable. So we don't. I obviously, as I'm not like a head coach or director or anything, I don't have those numbers, but I do know roughly where people are sitting, and there is a drastic difference between everyone's scholarships. So it was completely based on like what is your experience, how much mainly what's factored in is like how much do you really need, like how much is going to help you, how much suffices. Like if somebody is coming in with like almost with no academic, they maybe come from a less wealthy family, they might get a little bit extra coming in just for the first couple semesters, and then it might change, but who knows. But the general philosophy for us is that your scholarship amount will never decrease.
Right.
So
that's a good one to have.
Yeah. So as we come in, like I'm at a flat rate, I will never drop below that. I will only go above it. But for the same reason of why I left Chaos, because I left Chaos because I didn't want to, or I felt like I had no motivation to like try and improve. So I didn't want to just be another pro that's just cashing a paycheck. So I just gave the mutual respect and just said, hey, I'm gonna leave because I know that I'm not gonna sit here and grind 80 hours and just really try and fix these issues that I have. Like they didn't want to cut me at all. They were like, no, like please, can we keep trying? It's annoying to go through roster changes. But I was just like, I knew that I was just gonna be cashing a paycheck. So I'm kind of having the same philosophy here where next semester I'm going to be getting my academic scholarship back and I will be on like a full ride plus like I'll have like a surplus. So I don't have a need for additional scholarship money that comes in for a program, like if we win tournaments or if we get prize winnings. So I'm just going to wait until everyone else gets up to the point where my scholarship is before I start taking like some of the money that we win, because there's no point. Like I already have a full ride. I
Mhm.
know that it's different for, because like, you know, if you graduate with $5,000 in student loans, which is obviously insanely small, but I'm just using it as an example.
I
Yeah,
love
but
that.
you're not paying. Yeah, you're not paying that $5,000. You're paying the interest as well. So you'll end up paying way more than that amount. So you know, multiply that by 10. That's 50,000. That's still a pretty good thing to graduate for a lot of people. So that's a
Yeah.
lot of money that you are paying on. And I think like there's no point in me taking that extra money. Like if I end up needing money, I'll just get a job. Like but that's different because like I said, that 2,000 extra, you know, they could be getting a year is really like 3,000 plus that they're paying on, you know, depending on how much they pay and interest and everything. So I think it's important that we have this conversation about scholarships, and I think it's kind of a tricky situation because yes, coming from pro, you should be getting more scholarship because it's more of an incentive to go to the college, but at the same time, you know, a lot of
wanna
these
break the
other
bank.
guys,
Yeah.
you don't want to break the bank, and you want to make it fair for everybody on the team because you can't just have somebody making 10 times more than everybody else and then everyone else is making like an extremely small amount.
Right.
So it's important to kind of balance that out.
Oh, you still with us? You've been very quiet over there.
Yeah, no, I've just been listening in. I have a couple of questions specific around the collegiate scene, but like what are the like current leagues like? What is that atmosphere like? I know that I actually just recently joined the CSL for as a caster at least, but that's the only real college league that I know of, and as well as the newly introduced Faceit
Did you
league.
see us go to war with Faceit a couple days ago?
Yeah, I saw that as well. And if you want to
Hard
talk
fought
about
battle.
that,
I was livid. I
Yeah.
mean, I was just so mad because I knew for a very long time that there was going to be some type of league that didn't understand the scene, right? That was going to be like, yeah, we can't let pro or MDL players play because they'll just crush everybody. Like that was going to be the mentality. And then like Faceit announced his awesome prize pool for Valorant and Counter-Strike. And I'm like, all right, dope. This is what we've been waiting for. Like CSL will do this for now, but I think Faceit's the place we want to be. And then I go and dive into the rule book because I have to make sure the rule set's solid.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these leagues and tournaments don't have a rule set. So like a hash, like they were just like, what do you mean you need an anti-cheat?
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, good Lord, like on to the next, right? So like Faceit gets it, obviously has all the infrastructure they need, but then there's this rule that says like basically in bold lettering, Cam cannot play. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
what the absolute shit? Like how is this going to be the league that does this, right? So I
Yeah.
went to Twitter, I went and talked to them, DM'd the director I know over there. Like we hashed it out and figured it out, but it's still at a spot where they could change it up and be like, yeah, we're just basically not going to let a very strong roster compete here. Like I still didn't get 1,000% confirmation. If I was to recruit, like if I clone Cam 4 more times, right, and put him on a roster, they might deem that roster to be too strong, and that team wouldn't be able to play. But that's completely backwards for what the collegiate scene needs to be happening, right? Like we're trying to grow to make it better, not the other way around.
Yeah.
I see a future probably way down the road where collegiate esports becomes like a funneling system into pro, where like it's the place to go where like your retired pros are working as directors, teaching players like the fundamental skills they need after they've been grinding like in their early teenage years to like become really good players, and like bolster like the actual pro scene, because like right now that path to pro is really like murky and honestly requires like a lot of luck in who you know and like what you are able to learn from your experiences, whereas like in a more traditional sense, like if you had somebody with experience and leadership to guide you and like show you the way and like how to be better and how to like become a professional player while also getting your college education at the same time, I feel like that's like the best solution for that, instead of like just grinding, which like a lot of kids are going to want to do. But as you get older, you kind of realize that like, hey, there's a lot more to life than just sitting at your computer playing one game for 8 to 12 hours every day to try to be the best. You know what I mean? And then as soon as you realize that and you start to experience life more, you're kind of like, oh, why did I do that? Like obviously I don't think that because I was lucky enough to be able to get into like that sort of circle and like learn a lot about myself, and I was able to like take away a lot of things that I wouldn't have otherwise if I didn't try. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of players that have been trying for a very long time, and like they've been playing and they like have been sacrificing a lot of like their lives to pursue this, and they haven't gotten anywhere or gotten any rewards for it, you know. It's really sad for me to see. And I feel like if those kinds of people had the opportunity to like obtain like a degree while also being trained in such a way where they could learn and like become a professional player, would be awesome, you know.
Yeah, agreed.
Well, I think the biggest, yeah, started off with, I think the biggest issue is, I just realized this now, but I really think that, like, coming from high school, people assume that college is going to be similar. It's really not. Like,
Completely different game.
yeah, it's completely different. First off, I mean, you're completely on your own for the most part. Like, obviously living by yourself, but you know, you might have a roommate, but that's doesn't really mean anything because you're used to somebody pampering you essentially. But you really just, once you start getting into classes that you're interested about, it's like so different. It's completely different than high school. Because high school, you know that that's something that, like, oh, I just like have to show up. Like, that's what it is. Like, you just have to, or your parents are gonna be upset, or there's gonna be legal repercussions. But like, when it comes to college, it's completely different. So all these people that are like, oh well, you know, I hated school, so I don't even know if I wanted to go to college. I didn't do too hot in school, so I'm probably not going to go to college. It's like, okay, now let's flip the script and say that, okay, yeah, you didn't do very good in school, so you're worried about, okay, what schools can I get into? You know, scholarship wise, maybe is that going to be an issue? Okay, well now there's a bunch of resources for esports, and you can get a really hefty scholarship because of things you've done in CS. And I think that will help a lot of these players end up going to college. Like, because there's a lot. I mean, I can't tell you how many MDL or like just players I've talked to in general that are just like, oh, I don't want to go to college. Like, I have no
Right.
plans
Yeah.
on going to college. Which, that's fine if you are like interested in doing something that just doesn't require a college education. Like, that's totally fine. I think that there's kind of an extra expectation, like, oh, everyone has to go to college. That's not necessarily true. It's all based on what you want to do. Some careers you don't need to go to college. Some you need to go to college for 10 years. It really just depends on, you know, truly what you believe your passion is. But I hate people not going to college because they're like, oh well, I just don't have the funds for it, or they think it's going to be like high school and they just are already burnt out from it.
Right. And they go in like this limbo. I like to use that word limbo. There's like a limbo for like semi-pro players or pro players, right? Like, where if you're
Yep.
grinding out day after day, but not pursuing other things in your life, you can really sit in limbo for a long time, I think. And that's just disheartening to see. And the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing right now is to give individuals opportunities and resources that I did not have when I was grinding to pro. Like, that's just the pure fact of it, because
Right.
they deserve some resources. They really do. If you put hours played in this game that we all love to, like, even your college basketball player, right, who's in like D2 or D3, the Counter-Strike player has probably played lots more hours practicing the game, the majority of the time. So it's like, how do we not have resources that are supporting this initiative? Someone's that passionate to play 10,000 hours in a game, like, they should be given something. So that's what I'm like on the ground fighting for 24/7.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a
that's
bit of
awesome.
an interesting like dilemma, to go back to what Logan was talking about, is that while people probably don't look at like your average CS:GO player as like a brainiac, right? Like the skill set for what you need to be successful in CS or any esport is the same as the skill set you need to be successful in college, right? You need to be self-starting, self-motivating, and driven, right?
That's why colleges love it.
Right. So it makes absolutely all the sense in the world, that if you have someone like with that mindset, maybe not like the greatest academic rock star, but they'll be able to like grind their way through college, like no question in my mind.
Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was say I just wanted to touch base on that real quick because it's, I think when everybody looks at GPA and everything, they instantly correlate it with, oh, you had a 4.0 GPA, oh, you're smart. Like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, they might be smart, but getting a good GPA in high school is literally just, it depends on the high school because some are more strict than others, but it really is just like, did you do your work? Like, did you do it? That's like
Yeah.
really all it is. So I think, you know, you have people that are really smart and they just got burnt out in school or just didn't care. And college is completely different because, like I said, it's what you're interested in. So it's kind of a weird dynamic where people kind of give up on themselves because maybe they're not good at standardized tests. So because of that, they tend to perform worse in high school and their GPA is low. It's like I don't know. I think there needs to be more of a discussion about the differences because if anything, how many times in high school were you told, "Oh, well, if you're complaining about stuff now, wait till you get to college. That's so much harder." It's like it's not though. Like it's a completely different like it's almost I wouldn't even say it's really comparable.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's really just so different and people don't understand that because you're told that, "Oh yeah, no. College is just going to be even harder than this, so you got to make sure that you're doing everything you can now because if you can't do the stuff here, you're not going to be able to do it in college."
And
It's
in
like
a
you're
way, it is harder. Sorry to cut you off. In a way,
Oh,
it
no, you're
is harder,
good.
but at the same time, the stuff you're doing is a lot. It's like more interesting. It's like
Yeah.
stuff that you want to do, right? Whereas in the high school, it's like busy work, drudging through it. Like I'm not going to use this later in my life, and then you get to like college and you start to actually like see the things that you want to do, like you were saying, and it's like even if it is maybe a little bit more time consuming, like you don't mind because it's like wow, you're learning cool things, like stuff that could really apply to your life, and you're like seeing the opportunities, and it's like a lot. It's a lot better. And for a lot of other kids, like Matt said this once to me, and I completely agree with him that people it shouldn't be a normal thing to force kids to go to college straight from 18.
Mhm.
They need a year or two or maybe even more to work and like figure themselves out and get that motivation to want to learn more, not go straight into college when they're already burnt out of doing busy work at school, because I don't know about you guys, but when I was 18, I had no idea who I was, what I wanted to do, anything like that. And then all of a
Yep.
sudden you're just slapped with a big list of majors and you're like, pick one. It's like, okay, this is like if I pick the wrong one, that's like a multi-$1,000
Yeah.
mistake,
Oh,
put me
yeah.
in debt for the rest of my life. I don't know what to do. Pick something, doesn't work out, and then you're just like, then what? Like, where do you go from there? That's like so much money down the drain, right? So I think there's a lot of merit to sort of like take a couple years off and just say, I'm going to work a job. I'm going to learn some things on my own and I'm going to figure out who I am. I'm going to experience life a little bit more now that I'm out of high school. And then once you're ready, that's when you go. Like it's really mind blowing that we're kind of in this state where like there's all of these students that like look like they'd rather be doing anything else than being here just because that their parents are like, oh, you're gonna do this or else we're kicking you out and we're not supporting you and you're on your own. Like sorry.
I
I had a
agree.
tangent there.
Completely agree. No, I mean you're good. I think like I exact same thing for me was that at 18 all I knew was one thing. I wanted to play Counter-Strike. That is it. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a bit of like a chicken and the egg thing, right? Like we're starting to get to a place in this country, I think, where there is a lot more acceptance of the fact that you can be like very successful without a college education, right? And like the tech boom and the tech geniuses have really been a force for that. I think like we'd benefit hugely on the whole from taking like a more vocational approach to college. Like I went to school for 4 years, got a computer science degree, graduated, like very straight path. But I mean, oftentimes you're spending 4 years in college, and then again when you get out and get into the real world and working, you again have not been prepared at all adequately for what it's going to be like in the actual like to enter the workforce. So
It just
I'm
changes up on you once you get out of it for sure.
yeah,
Mhm.
I'm a huge fan of the I don't know of like the co-op programs. Like I know Drexel like makes a lot of use. So like basically you wind up going to school for like an extra year, but that's because you're spending like half a year with like an extended internship essentially
Right. Just
that
add
you
it
get
on.
through the school.
It's the
Yeah.
4+1. There's a lot of them, but
Yeah.
I am. But yeah, to answer your question, CSL, Faceit, ESCA. Oh, ACA doesn't have something yet, but I'm wanting to talk to them about that in the
Okay.
future.
You say
But those,
ESCA?
they don't have something yet. That's the one spot I wish we did have more
Yeah.
collegiate
Yeah,
traction.
agreed.
You guys,
Just
yeah.
because that is like the very ESEA is the one spot that if you are a Counter-Strike player, that is where you probably started.
Yeah,
I mean,
kick it
Faceit's
off, yeah.
obvious. Faceit's kind of bringing it back to their side because they've been really competitive with everything. But like everyone knows ESEA pugs.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like so it's
Or
like
even
there's
open.
a huge fan base. Yeah, or just
Yeah.
open. There's like a bazillion teams in open. So yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the
Yep.
leagues though that we're competing in. Also a bunch of one-off tournaments where we can. I mean, the beauty about esports is that there's always going to be options to play in something. I tell everybody we don't have an off season because like why would we stop playing? You know what I mean? Like we
Yep.
just keep going throughout the year.
Have you
Well,
all?
where have you guys been in these cash cups, yo?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask. Yeah.
Haven't been able
Um,
to because it conflicts
fair
with our
enough.
schedule.
Yeah, that's the other thing is scheduling within the collegiate scene is if you think scheduling open matches is difficult, wait till we tell you about college.
Yeah.
It's just like you go through I mean, this is probably everybody else has played as well. An open, main, IM, all the way up to like until you hit MDL or pro, people try to ninja schedule you 24/7 and won't think twice about getting a forfeit win. Like that's just the reality of it. So you have that in college too because you have so many of these programs that isn't run by somebody that's down there saying like, hey, you can't just try to scam them out of a game. You know,
Mhm.
like it's a club-driven program that might be competing, or it's like 5 individuals who don't really care about if they screwed over someone's time.
Yeah.
So you have this constant like having to talk to people that are coaches, just student coaches, directors sometimes who don't really get it, and just like it becomes chaos really quickly if you're in so many things.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Is AVGL still around? Because I know that they were another force in the collegiate scene. Are you guys not
I
playing there?
think they're I thought they were high school based and they just recently went into college. Am I wrong? Or maybe I'm wrong about that.
I know that they've run at least one collegiate event. I thought that was their
Yeah,
deal.
they're out there. They're actually pretty big, if I remember correctly.
Mhm.
They actually have a really cool initiative they're doing right now called Intel Inspires, I'm pretty sure. That's like
Mhm.
partnered up with Intel to do qualifiers to get people, college students, like a better scholarship of some kind. I haven't really dove into it because there's like a zillion initiatives in esports collegiate right now. So I have like 20 emails each day about the hottest new topic, right?
Yeah.
But like they're out there. They're definitely out there.
Mhm. What is like? I'd love for you guys to just like walk me through like your average like day, like through the actual collegey part of it, and then like the CS part of it, and
Yeah,
like
I'll
kind of
go
what that
last
looks
on
like.
that one. There's two completely different worlds, right? I'll let
Yeah.
Matt go first.
Yeah.
Well, right now it's the quarantine life, right? So I live in off-campus housing that's like a 5-minute walk from any of my classes, so it's really nice. And I walk to my classes, I come back, I play Counter-Strike, and rinse repeat. I mean it's nice because the playing Counter-Strike part isn't as stressful as it would be like back then when it's like, okay, like I'm done with like the college now, and now I really want to try to go pro. Like this is the grind time. This is where it's like stressful and trying to get there. But this time it's more of like okay, what am I gonna plan? Where do I want the team to be? What am I gonna do like next time we practice? And then we have Counter-Strike practice from 6 until 8:30. Sometimes we go until 9. But yeah, it's a really good like we have the stable here, which is awesome. Like we have a whole bunch of really nice computers, 240 hertz monitors.
Is that picture that you put on
Yeah.
Twitter? Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
So we have it's called the stable, and it's basically the esports room on the campus. And like you go there, and it's in the brand new tech building that they built. I think it was last year. They finished it, and you just walk up, and there's just this giant room, with all the computers, and there's like walls you can write on. There's like TVs like everywhere, so you can like cast your screen to the TV,
Mhm.
and it's pretty nice. By pretty nice, I mean very nice. It's
Yeah.
awesome. And yeah, so like I try to like play all of our matches from there. I make an effort to be there as often as I can because I think out of all my time playing Counter-Strike, the in-person element is one of the most important elements that not a lot of people get. And like that interpersonal connection where you get to see the people you're talking to, you can tell them to come over and like watch you and like explain something, or like you can watch them do something and like other things like that, and just build that sort of connection that you wouldn't get remotely. I think is super important and underrated. But other than that, like, I don't know, it's pretty boring, the quarantine, because there's not a lot to do. Like, you go to the grocery store and it's fun right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so essentially how mine is, it's a little bit more hectic because we do have, workouts and we have all this, but typically like Tuesday, Thursdays we have workouts. It used to be 5:30 a.m., which is good that it's not anymore. It's now towards 11 a.m.
Wow.
And then
That's
so we do 11 a.m. workouts. Usually, people have classes before and after. The days we practice, I believe we do Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. I think we try to, and then we usually go from like 6 to 10 p.m. And that's always in the facility. So we have a full-on facility that is. We have good computers, but as of right now, I'm the only one with a 240 hertz monitor because, special
Captain.
privilege. Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah. So, but all the other ones are 144, which we're looking to get 240s upcoming. But like,
Are you guys gonna get the 360 hertz ones that come out in like a month?
Probably not, because they're probably going to be like $7,000.
They're
Knowing
$700, I think.
Ooh, okay, that's actually not bad. But
Yeah,
Still
have
a lot.
you? Yeah.
How
I
much
don't
of a
know.
difference though does that make?
That's
I
what
know
I
that's a
don't
little
know.
bit in the weeds, but yeah.
240 is
Yeah.
huge. 360 is gonna
240
be.
is
I don't know
really
what.
nice. I
Yeah.
have a 240 myself, and I've never been better.
yeah. The 240 makes a big difference. I have no idea what 360 is gonna do.
Yeah.
'Cause
I don't know if it's gonna be like negligible or if it's gonna blow everything out of the water.
I just don't
Right.
understand how it could be smoother though. That's the thing.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought on 75 hertz 10 years ago, though. So it's like, who knows?
That's fair. That's
He's
fair.
there with his CRT monitor, like, oh my god, buttery smooth 1.6 action.
Yeah, if I ever have to do a bring your own computer LAN again with a CRT monitor, I'll probably just stop playing all games together.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I actually refuse to right now because Cam touched base on like trying to be there as much as he can. We strictly will not practice unless it's in the facility, because the quality of practice is just horrible at home compared to the facility. Like everyone loves it so much more being there. It literally is a huge difference. Like we will go from playing from home and just getting absolutely annihilated, then we'll go into the facility and like I said, we're like we were beating an advanced team on Vertigo like 16-7, like on the facility, and then when we get home, we're like losing to main teams. So it's like a huge difference. And I know it is just scrims, so it's different. But when you're playing main teams, they're not really practicing. Their scrims are playing to win. So you're basically playing a match that's just in a scrim environment. So yeah, we refuse to play unless we like if we have to, we will play from home if it's like super necessary and I really feel like we need the practice. But as of right now, we strictly only play from the facility, which is going to be getting a little bit more difficult because I go to a college in Houghton, Michigan, and it's already been snowing a bunch, and it gets to like negative 40 degrees wind chill. So
Gosh, Godspeed.
that'll be interesting. But luckily, we have people on the team that have cars and can give like rides and stuff. But
Makes sense.
I went to school in upstate New York, so I know the struggle.
Yep. It's rough.
And my day's completely different than both of those when it comes to, it's just a lot. Any esport director or head coach right now is probably juggling about 1,000 things because we have this constant conversation with the universities that's most people are really responsive and like understand what you're saying, but everyone thinks you're just playing video games, right? So it's not just like they don't understand the idea that like 4 titles means 4 rosters. 4 titles means 4 different games that if you don't dedicate a couple thousand hours to, you're not really going to be able to give them much advice on the mechanics because you haven't practiced the mechanics, right? So I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to tell you. Do I tell Rocket League what to do when they're in a certain situation? No, by any means do I do that. But I flip it around and then I start using my pro experience when we talk about all this like leadership communication, those things that where I did spend 10 to 20,000 hours getting good at what I did, showcasing that how you do that in esports, in your game, in your team. Both the players here talked about like how how it's like important to like the people that you're playing with. I'm a huge believer as well, and that isn't always as easy if you have individuals down there who haven't played in team sports before. So it's like, how do you navigate the team to succeed? That's usually my days. Like, how can I get this roster to succeed, and what can be done to help them get better? And then obviously all the other stuff we're trying to tack on, which making it much difficult. I mean, COVID's making it impossible. I'm surprised you're doing workouts over there because we want to do workouts, but we're really limited with like the staffing and COVID because like it's just everyone has 1,000 things to do, right? So the wellness of everything is a big thing in my head too. Is like, how can we make sure people aren't burning out or having a good time outside of practice? So like we're in Discord a lot of the time. We'll play games outside of it. At the end of the day, I'm coaching, but I'm also there a little bit more than that because there's no NCAA regulations to where I can go work out with the team. I can play games and talk to them about other stuff. Like I am a gamer. I am up till 2 or 3 o'clock, like playing Counter Strike. So it's just different, right? It's like they say you're a director and head coach, but it's more like I'm just like a mentor at times, to be completely honest. But obviously we want to win. I want to win. I want to do well, and I want to be able to give individuals that want to go far in esports, whatever avenue, whatever job that is. I want to give them opportunity because I think if you have a passion for esports and you put in the time, you can really go anywhere with it. That's usually my day though. It's just hopping on emails in the morning and then coaching at night, playing games at midnight.
How many like actual real matches are you guys doing like week over week, would you say?
Ideally we're in like 1 or 2 leagues for a semester, so you're looking at like 1 to 2 matches each week, and like that's something that I try to stay on top of too, is like when we're scheduling stuff, because if you fall behind on scheduling, you're gonna next have like 4 matches out of the blue, and then you're in trouble. So two matches a week is like we're a good spot where we want to be. I think we're playing 1 right now because we're made ESEA playoffs, but we don't have that for another couple weeks.
Yeah, we just play CSL.
Yeah, which I'm a fan of CSL. Don't get me wrong, but like Faceit couldn't come any faster.
Yeah, I've heard some rough things about CSL. There's a couple teams that I've talked to that just don't play it in the collegiate scene. So, but yeah, that's usually 1 best of 3 a week. So we just play that Sundays. Which I have one tomorrow versus the ICU Redbirds.
Ooh, we've played against those guys, I think.
Have we?
That Illinois?
The Redbirds?
Probably. I honestly don't know.
We played against them in a Faceit pug when we were actually like doing quote unquote scrims, but we were just doing Faceit pugs, like 5-man Faceit pugs.
Yeah. Actually, I think I remember them now. Yeah.
Actually, no, it was the MU State? Red Hogs, I think.
How would you rate CSL on like an ESEA scale?
Like as ACA being the gold standard? Is that what you're saying?
I mean, like in terms of the divisions, where would you say that CSL falls?
Oh, like wait, competition wise?
Yeah, like do you think like it's an average like main level of competition?
Probably not.
Yeah,
it's
probably
like open.
Below that. It's probably open IM-ish, and you have like a couple superstar rosters. I mean, if you get 1 or 2,
it's literally open because open has those 1 to 3 superstar teams in it every time.
Well, I just finished casting. It's can't remember the team that I casted the other day, but they like it definitely looked like they were like they nearly 16-0'd the team that they were playing. And then I look up like half of the players. It was like Steeled. Do you all know that team? Steeled. He was on that roster, but I look up the team and like they're literally like A+, like all, and then I look up the other team and like it just looked like a game of like 5 Smurfs versus.
Yeah, blowouts happen all the time in collegiate right now, which goes back to I think Cam mentioned it. There's like no traditional starting point for esports.
Right.
There's no camp. You don't go to a camp. Like your 7-year-old is not. Well, we're starting to see more of it. I want to host a camp eventually. But if you want to go play basketball for summer, you go to a camp for a summer and you get better at your mechanics. Right. Like, no one sends their kid out to go for Counter-Strike camp to go get good at like 10 or 12, right? So it really is just like playing in your room with friends until you get to where? College? I mean, I guess we're putting it together right now, but that's such a hard thing to like put together, like how do we create this funneling system?
Yeah, that seems very difficult. And like props to you all for trying.
Are there any other like notable people playing collegiate right now? Like I know back in the day, obviously you had like Toy and Food and those guys on like the
They're the reason
NYU
that
group.
Faceit made that rule. That's the team.
Mhm.
Yep.
The 2015 Knicks or whatever you want to call them, whatever their name was, right? Like they
Yeah,
just destroyed
Baruch.
it.
Yeah.
I don't think actually. I think you have the two players that are the only two players from the at least Counter Strike, right? As far as I
Mhm.
know, I've talked
Mhm.
to a lot of them, but I mean, unless these two know somebody.
No,
I
think
haven't
it's
looked
just
at
us.
any of the collegiate teams other than Logan's.
Yeah,
That's
'cause-
hopefully changing soon, but
yeah, and it's different, like, because the level that Cam and I have gotten to is like that you really won't see. There's not many NA players that really did, just because everyone who did is still playing.
Right.
So like, because it was always just kind of the same players, just on different teams for the
Yep.
longest time. So unless you have like a Cutler who's like 30 something that just goes to college, like you're really not gonna see many pros really. Like I think MDL is gonna be the cutoff. Like I really don't think you will see for at least a couple years.
Yeah.
Mhm.
yeah, I'm talking to a lot of MDL players in general. A
Yeah.
couple pros that want to go back, but I mean, it's just hard to. Also, here's the thing too. If you most of the time, you like for these two, maybe I had a little bit of influence on Cam coming here, right? But you're really going to the school you're going to go to
Mhm.
because you're going for a degree, and then you're hoping esports is there at this point. That's
Yep.
just that's just the reality of it. So like, if we get more people that have experience that actually can set up a good program, you can start pulling more talent to come to the college for esports, and hopefully your degree is there, right? That is a ways off. But there are very few people in the scene that have pro experience that are actually the directors or head coaches that would be able to pull those type of players in to play at that college. So,
Right.
but we're trying to get there. I want to have a yeah, man. Give me a full stacked MDL roster. Like, come on, we'll just destroy the collegiate scene. Like, it's just the reality of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, half the league is unsigned, so I'm sure there's availability there.
you're right.
True.
I mean, like I talk to him all the time. I'm like, hey, you want to come play college level? I'll give you a scholarship because it's many other better options. You're probably getting $200 a month for some crappy org. So I got a better option for you.
They got 120K on aim labs the other day. They're gonna go pro.
Oh my
They're
god.
going pro in Valorant
They're
tomorrow.
going pro, man. Like,
So it sounds like Logan doesn't really regret stepping away from the the CS whatever rabble, I guess. Cam, do you have any regrets about because you both kind of like left at maybe not the height of your powers, right? But it's not like you guys reached pro and then like kind of like fell off and were like toiling down in Maine or whatever, right? And couldn't get back on a team. You both kind of like called it before that like drop off happened. So
Yeah.
what are your feelings on that?
I had reached a point where I was like, I just don't want to do this right now. I want to go back and finish college. I was at my sort of my wit's end, because Logan probably can attest to this, but like I worked my ass off on Chaos constantly, probably to my own detriment. I think like I was doing everything in my power to like make myself better, and I just wasn't seeing results. And it started to put me in like a really, really bad mindset where I felt almost kind of hopeless in a way, because I was like putting in all this work and I wasn't seeing the fruits of my labor at all. Like it was almost like I was getting worse at times. And it wasn't until after, when I really had a breather, when I was able to be at home and I was like thinking everything through and I was analyzing it all that, I was like, oh, maybe the solution was that I just needed to take more breaks and experience life more, because I think I was experiencing a lot of burnout, to be honest. And that's like something you're seeing a lot with like Knock on NIP, and there's probably some other players too that you hear about on like HLTV, that like they're taking leaves not even because of injuries, but because like they need to take a break.
Yeah.
Because
Solace, basically, right?
it's
So,
very mentally taxing. Like
Yeah.
especially when you're like when you're in a position like I was, where you're just trying so hard day in day out and like nothing's happening. It's like you're just hitting a wall. And I just like, after that was over, I was just like, I was very fortunate on Singularity Guerrilla Gang where I was able to like do that with like players where we all had the same mindset. We got along really well. Like we'd all tried really hard. And then we go into a team where there's a lot of really different personalities that don't get along all the time. And
hard.
that's
So tough.
kind of like the nature of being a pro player, right? Is like you go from being on a group of people that you really love to be around, and you play the game and you have so much fun, but you don't get compensated enough to have it be full time forever, versus once you make it and you play on a pro team and you get that professional level salary to make it full time, all of a sudden you're surrounded by people that maybe you don't necessarily are going to get along with all the time.
Right.
And like I kind of made that realization that like I don't know if I'm ever going to get that lucky again to find a group that is really awesome that I love to play with and also get compensated for it too, for the amount of work I'm putting in. So I said, I'm going to go back to college. I'm going to figure out what's out there. I asked Matt to help me, and Matt is MC, and he put me in touch with Corey, and he also put me in touch with Logan's director. I think her name is Katie.
Yep.
And I was just trying to like figure out what else was out there, and those two were definitely like the best by far for Counter-Strike. There were others, but like the scholarships just weren't very good other than those two. Yeah, and I'm very grateful that we did, because I would have never known how well I would have gotten along with Corey before this. Like I kind of knew from like our first conversation with each other, like, okay, he knows what he's doing. He's got it figured out. He's going to help me. So like now here I am, like I'm really happy to be here. Like I'm out here all by myself. Like I didn't know anybody before coming here other than talking to Corey on Discord.
Right.
I'm already like making friends with people and figuring it out, and it's pretty great. I don't regret it at all, and like I see all of my experiences I had playing Counter-Strike as like learning experiences. Like I learned so like the more that I talk to people my age, and the more I talk to like my like teachers and like people like at like hiring agencies where I'm like talking to them, they are all like really impressed at the amount of things that I've experienced and learned from compared to like other people of my age, just because of Counter-Strike, dude. Like who else has been able to say they've put in like 10,000 hours into a game that's helped them travel like to literally all corners of the globe to play in tournaments? Like who can say that? Who can say that they've had to like hone their communication and like adaptability skills like provably to like win money in like competitions and like in this brand new like arena, and like I don't know, it was awesome, and I'm really grateful for it. I've talked to Logan about this in the past, but like after I'm finished with my degree, I may consider trying again, but like this time taking what I've learned and surrounding myself with people that I really enjoy playing with. Logan's one of those people. I really enjoyed playing with him. And
Same goes to you.
yeah.
Oh,
Thanks, buddy.
wholesome.
But yeah, like it'd just be like just finding those people where it's almost like you're not even getting on to like to grind to pro. You're just getting on because you just like playing
wanna
with
be
each other, and
around
you
'em.
like
Yeah.
like the competition.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just
everything
fun.
too. I'm sorry to cut you off there, Kim, because I think
You're
that's such an
fine.
important topic. And like, this is above my desk. Hopefully you can see the camera, but that's like one of my first pro runs, right? And those are players that I still talk to this day. I was extremely lucky to play with players that had the same mindset as me that I got along with. And it never felt like I was getting on to grind something ever. It was always just like I got to go talk to my friends, and we're just really good at Counter-Strike as well. I think that's so important. And I think Cam hit something too that I think almost every single MDL pro, semi-pro player hits eventually, or doesn't even realize it too. You get so absorbed within the world, you don't take the time to step back and like think about your future or what you're doing. I know I did this as well. Again, goes back to why I do what I want to do to help players out that are like kind of in that bubble, because eventually you take a step back and you're like, oh crap, all this stuff that I did, I'm light years ahead of the pack if I actually use all the things that I'm doing day to day and turn them into like the critical thinking engine that I am, right? Or like the teamwork leader that I can be. Like Cam's exactly right. There are basically a handful of people that have spent 10,000 hours in anything on this planet. Well, I shouldn't say handful. It's a very hard thing to do, right? So like that puts you light years ahead of the competition, especially when you're younger. If you're like 18, 19, 20, 21, you have 10,000 hours in something, like you should be showcasing that to the world because they'll probably land you any job you want, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I was really passionate about that.
No, that's good. I mean,
Yeah.
that like it's like it's something that I haven't thought about before. But I mean, like you would think that at some point someone's going to be running, like seminars, right, to like help people who have reached this level in CS or LoL or whatever the game may be, right, and how to transition that into success, in the
Right.
real world once
It's
you've
huge.
hung up the mouse, like professionally speaking,
But
right?
the thing is, there's no one around us that would like. Who the hell would you listen to for that, other than someone who's gone through it that's also close to your age? Like, I don't know if I was 18, 19, 20, 21, if I would ever go to a seminar with somebody like that didn't play through it, right? So you have a very small group of individuals that could even talk to that experience too.
Right.
So I think you're right. In the future, we'll see that happen, and hopefully I'll do it at one point because that'd be awesome. Like, welcome to my TED Talk.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
like I just think it's so important to be able to assist with that logic of thinking because I did it as well. I was at like hour 8,000 in the back of my mind, just like Counter-Strike, 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 Counter-Strike. But if I ever stepped away and applied what I had learned, I could have like signed up for NASA or something crazy, right? Like,
Yeah.
like the sky's the limit, I think, ultimately, if you become a critical thinking machine, which is what video games does for you on the daily.
Yeah. So, Cam, what ultimately, it sounded like there was a chance to have a Cam Voltage reunion tour at MTU. So, what ultimately drew you to New Haven? Because Logan, I believe you're from Michigan, right? So
Yeah.
that's an easy decision.
And I've
for
already
you.
been just quickly. I've already actually attended this college. When
Right.
because I dropped out of, I took a semester off of college from when I got on ASIO. So.
Right.
So I'll say there were two main factors. One of them is Corey.
Mhm.
Corey is like a main driving factor because Katie was really nice, but she was like very clearly like not to the level, like not even close to where Corey was, like in terms of understanding how to lead, like what he was going to do with it.
Mhm.
And then the second thing was the money. So
Sure.
when I was talking to both of them, Corey gave me his number for like what the scholarship level is like, and I was like, okay, that's pretty good. I could probably handle that. Like it's going to be a little bit tight. Like the way it currently stood was that it would cost about the same with the scholarship as it would for me to be at home, going to a local university, except instead I would be on the East Coast living, going to a really, really good school with great programs, and also playing Counter-Strike and like still getting to do that because I still like playing Counter-Strike and I want to like, and I've always wanted, I kind of figured out after I analyzed like my career, like what happened and like everything like that, I was like, I really want to like be an IGL. So I want to go and I want to like lead people. I want to lead like these younger underdeveloped players and I want to make them better. I want to teach them the things that I wish that I had when I was upcoming as a player, like that element of expertise, like that experience that they could just say, hey, you just do this and then you'll be fine. Like it's not like you completely have to figure it all out on your own. While there is like merit to that in terms of like actual life of figuring it out on your own, but like at the same time you kind of shortcut that development. But anyway, the MTU, they gave me a number and it was a lot better than Corey's at first. They were going to give me pretty much a full ride because not of Counter-Strike, but because of the business college there. So the business college was going to basically account for like a half or 2/3 of like the total scholarship amount that I would get there, and it would basically be a full ride. And then Classic Esports fell apart, and that part vanished because I was a transfer student. So if that was my first year being a university student, I would have had a full ride to Logan's College, but because I was a transfer student, they said no. They said can't do that part anymore. And then I was like,
Academia is fun.
Yeah, well, now it's a no-brainer because first of all, I'm an out-of-state student, so the tuition there is like way more expensive than at Corey's because I'm not from Michigan. And then the other thing, that scholarship money that was going to help me pay for pretty much all of it, not going to happen anymore. But I'm like, at that point, I'm like so used to that because of sports, dude. You get so many false promises, so many. And like, I'm just like, oh, well, all right. Corey, Connecticut, sign me up. Let's
Yep,
go.
let's
Plane
go.
ticket.
And then like
On my
2
way.
weeks later, I was getting my Kia furniture, putting it in the back of my
Yep.
car.
Yep, that was an experience for you. I apologize for that.
No, it's all good. That was a fun day.
All right, Cole, we got anything else, or shall we wrap up?
We can wrap up. Oh, well, you go ahead, Logan.
Yeah, real quick, I just wanted to say about the previous topic
Mhm.
with. So I was fortunate that obviously, like, I'm pretty sure if you look at my career in terms of how long I've played, I probably have had the least amount of differing teammates than any other player to
Yep.
touch this game, because I've literally, I mean, I've played with Snakes. I think I played with him for like almost 4 years straight, and
Right.
then Grim for like 3 years. So like,
Yep.
I really have had the most minimal roster changes possible, and I think that was the perfect scenario. Like, I still play with Grim and Snakes on a daily basis. Like, we still play like Phasmophobia and like all these games all the time, and like I'm pretty sure Grim's gonna like fly me out to the next LAN they go to. Like,
Mhm.
we are all like a family. Like, I've been
Yeah.
like, I'm pretty sure Snakes might even come to college with me next in,
Oh,
in
that's
like
great.
a year or two. So
Yeah.
like,
Crap.
it's I don't know. I have no clue if he's playing.
snap.
I have no clue if he's playing at all, but he might be coming to the
Corey
college. And,
sweating.
yeah,
He's
but
been
yeah,
trying
it's
to
just like
field 'em.
really cool that like they're literally like my family at this point. And I think that's very like you guys were talking about it. It's very important that you enjoy who you're playing with.
Yeah.
Yeah,
totally
I
agree.
mean, I still remember, I still dig back, in the Dust2 tweet repository for that video of when you guys,
Yep.
made pro, and it was really something special to be there and have all your families there, because
Mhm.
like, the oldest one of you was Matt, but the rest of you were like 18 at most, right, at the time, and it was really a really
think-
awesome thing to see.
Yeah, I think Matt was the only one that was above 18. We were all
Yeah.
like 17, 16. Snakes was 15.
Yep.
So
Wow.
it's crazy. Yeah.
Mm,
Good times.
Yeah.
Time flies.
It
Yeah.
really does, man.
All right, let's take it home.
Yeah, I mean that's all that I've got for you. I want to say thank you all so much for joining. I've actually like learned so much about the college scene. It's super cool. I
This
didn't
was
realize how
fun.
developed it was.
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
I
really
can go
fun.
another 8 hours. Fuck
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Get it.
Yeah,
We
Yeah.
had these conversations till like 6 a.m. before it did.
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Gotta,
super.
gotta get
sick.
to our 10,000 hours in podcasting. So
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
I'm
Now,
getting there.
man.
I just uploaded a video with Pronogo. I did it yesterday. We talked for like 2 hours about NACS, but yeah. Do you have anything to plug before we close out?
Heck yeah, I got stuff to plug. I mean, my only real plug is gonna be like University of New Haven, right? Like, if everybody out there trying to compete at esports collegiate level, let me know. Just message me on Twitter or email me at cparks@newhaven.edu. That's all I got.
what games do you guys have going right now, Corey?
All of them. No, we have the 4 titles right now that we're competing in are Valorant, Rocket League, League of Legends, and Counter-Strike. So those are my top 4 in my mind. I'm trying to expand. We also have a Call of Duty team that will be rolling out when it swaps to PC, which I
Mhm.
think it's like in the RIM beta right now or something, right? The ones I'm trying to expand into is like R6 and Smite as well. I think
Mhm.
both those games are underappreciated. They're great, good mechanics, and they also have like a really good possibility to be good college games. So I'm looking for players in that too. End of the day, though, if there's like 3 speedrunners out there who just watch this, that are like, I want to go to college, I want to speedrun professionally, come hit me up. You know what I mean? Like, we'll expand it to anything.
Awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
Cam, Logan, anything to plug?
I'll plug a little bit. Why not?
Go for
So, obviously, if you're looking to do some collegiate stuff,
Mute
Michigan
him.
Technological University. It's very cold, so if you don't like the cold, don't even bother. Like, not worth it. You're just gonna drop out after a semester, like half of people do.
Wow.
But if you like the cold, come on up, Michigan Tech. You can play with your favorite Counter-Strike player, Mr. One Voltage. But yeah, in general, like, the only thing I have really to plug is my Twitter. Follow me, One Voltage. Best tweets around. Just saying. You won't be disappointed.
Cam?
Guess you could follow my Twitter, Cam CSGO. Ooh, definitely follow my Twitch though, CamHX. Because I stream a lot of like my team's practices and our matches. I stream every match we play. And you can kind of see our development from like ground zero almost. So if you want to see that, go for it.
Yeah, I mean,
Awesome
I would be
stuff.
super interested in seeing how you like develop a team, especially with like the like differing experience in the players. But that's all I've got. Thank you all so much for joining, and this has been
Anytime.
episode number 2 of Dust 2.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.